Okay, welcome back. So right now we're going to look at some volume of composite shapes, and a lot of these are just going to be different rectangular prisms combined. And how you solve them really depends on how you want to look at them. Basically, the idea is to find the easiest way to solve them, but there are a lot of different ways to approach it. So let's start with our first one, A. Now we can think about this as either a large rectangle and then with this small one on top, or you can also think about it as a long rectangle and then this right segment added on the end. Either way will give you the same answer, so why don't we try it this way. Let's separate it into two blocks. One's basically a cube and the other will be more of a rectangle. Alright, so our V1 is going to be equal to the volume of this rectangle, and that's going to be equal to our length times our breadth times our height. So that equals 8 times 2 times 3. Alright, so for our first volume, that's going to be equal to 8 times 6, which is just going to be equal to 48 centimeters cubed. And volume 2 is going to be a little bit different because we're going to try and figure out what each one of these parts is. So for the first side, we know that the base here is totaling 8 centimeters. And this smaller component is 5 centimeters. So this must be 3 centimeters. The depth is the same, so this is 2 centimeters. And now we just need our height, and our height is going to be the difference here, which is 3 off our 10 over here. So 10 minus 3 is just going to be 7. So the end result for our volume 2 is going to be 3 times 2 times 7, and that just equals to 6 times 7, or 42 centimeters cubed. So that our total volume, or total, is going to be equal to 48 plus 42, and that just equals 90 centimeters cubed. If I look at B, what we have ultimately is again a large rectangle with a small cube tacked on at the end. So for our volume 1, we'll tackle this large shape here. Right, now the first thing we need to know obviously is that we've got our length here of 4 meters. We've got our depth here of 2, so that will be the same here, 2 meters. And then all we need to do is work out our height. Now our total height is going to be our 6, which goes down to here, and then we add on the 2, so it's going to be times 8. So the volume of our first particular shape is going to be 4 times 2 times 8, and that means it's going to be equal to 64 meters cubed. And the volume of our second object is going to be, well, we've got our height is 2 and our width is 2. We just need our length. Now if it's from here to here is 4 centimeters, that means that from here to here must also be 4 meters, sorry. So this is going to be 4 times 2 times 2, and that's just equal to 4 times 4, which is 16 meters cubed. So that our total volume is going to be equal to 64 plus 16. So the total is going to be equal to 80 meters cubed. Alright, let's look at C. So C, I would like to probably think about the best way to do it would be to separate it into this large rectangular prism here, and then we tack on a rectangular prism below it as well. So the volume of our first one is going to be equal to, well, we have 20, which is our length, times our width, which is 4, and times our height, which is going to be 2. Now in that case, we have essentially 80 times 2, which is 160 centimeters cubed. And our second object, we know that from here to here is 15, we know our length is going to be 4, and we know our depth is also going to be 4. So our volume is going to be equal to 4 times 4 times 15, which is going to be equal to 240 centimeters cubed. That means that our total is equal to 160 plus 240, and that just equals 400 centimeters cubed. Okay, here's a few for you guys to practice, so just give the video a pause, give them a go, and then I will solve them. Alright, let's get started with our first one. Now we can think about this first one, E, as being essentially a complete cube and then a rectangular prism, and then we've taken away another rectangular prism from it. So first let's solve for the volume of the first huge or large rectangular prism, which in this case is going to be 10 times 2 times 8. So 10 times 2 times 8. So the volume is going to be equal to 160 meters cubed. Then our second one, the volume of the object we're going to take away, is going to be equal to, well, we've got 6 as our length, so 6 times 4 times the depth again, which is 2. Alright, so this is going to be equal to 48 meters cubed. So our total volume is going to be equal to 160 minus 48, and that just equals to 112 meters cubed. Alright, if we look at F, we can separate this out into essentially two rectangular prisms, one that's standing upright and one that's tacked onto the side. So let's do the one that's standing upright as V1. So this is going to be 2 times 4, because it's the same depth as this. So 2 times 4 times our height, which is 8. And that means that our volume is just going to be equal to 8 times 8, or 64 centimeters cubed. Now our volume of our second object, well, our length is going to be 6, so 6 times our width is 4, times our height, which is 1. So our volume for our second object is just going to be equal to 24 centimeters cubed. That means that the total is going to be equal to 64 plus 24, and that means we're left with 88 centimeters cubed. Now for this last one, there's a few ways to approach it. One of the easiest ways to do it is to just break it up into 3 separate layers. So these 3 separate layers are just 3 separate rectangular prisms that all you have to do is add them up at the end. So let's get started with the first one, which will make the top. So for the first one, our length is going to be equal to 4 times our width, which is going to be equal to 2, times our height, which is also going to be equal to 2. That means for our first layer, it's just going to be equal to 16 meters cubed. For our second layer, we have to determine how long it's going to be. Now we know that we've added on 1 here and 1 here. That means the total length is going to be 4 plus 2, which is going to be 6, multiplied by 2, multiplied by 2 again, because the width hasn't changed and neither has the height. So that's just going to be equal to 6 times 4, which is going to be equal to 24 meters cubed. And then finally our third one, we know the base length is going to be 10, so it's going to be 10 multiplied by our width, which is 2, multiplied by our height again, which is 2. So it's just going to be 10 times 4, which is 40 meters cubed. Now that means that our total volume is going to be equal to 16 plus 24 plus 40, and that just equals 80 meters cubed. Alright, that's it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.